Hello there, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today is something of an unexpected extra video this week because there's been some watch news, something which has come up fairly recently, and undoubtedly it's going to be the talk of the town when it comes to the horological world. And that is our good friends at the Swatch Group, that umbrella organisation that has so many of the sort of most prestigious and heirloom watch brands in the world under its control. They have announced another of their sort of modern collaborations. Now the last time we saw them take the iconic Omega Speedmaster and turn it into a sort of fancy swatch, the watches that they're more famous for. Today they've turned to another of their heirloom brands and they have converted their most famous offering from that brand into another swatch type. Quite interesting, quite fun watch, which we will talk about. But the brand is Blancpain. Now Blancpain is perhaps lesser well known to the wider world. I know that people who are interested in watches and horology will be familiar with the fact that Blancpain have claimed to be the oldest watch brand in the world, because they can throw their sort of historical origin story way back to 1735, way before the United States of America even became a country. This brand were making watches, and the founder of the company, Johann Jacques Blancpain, founded the company, and it was in family ownership for around about 200 years. Then it changed hands just a couple of times, and in 1992 it was purchased by the forerunner to what we now know as the Swatch Group today, and it became part of that great body of watch brands owned by the Swatch Group, and that includes brands like Omega and so on and so forth. There are many of them, but Blancpain has been kind of lesser well known. Now Blancpain's most famous offering to the watch world has been their 50 Fathoms watch. It's quite distinctive, it's quite unique. Many people are maybe aware of this watch because it claims to be the first ever modern dive watch, predating, allegedly, the famous Rolex Submariner. And it occupies kind of the same space, really. It produced a watch which was highly capable of being used on a daily basis underwater by professional divers, should it wish to do so, with a water resistance, you guessed it, 50 fathoms. Now that watch in the modern era, I think, is not that popular for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is 45 millimeters in diameter, so it is quite a unit. You've got to have quite the wrist presence, you know, to wear a watch that large. And also, let me just remind myself, it's in the region of something like 14,000 British pounds. So it is a lot of money to be investing in a watch if you're not, you know, comfortable with perhaps the resale or anything like that, which often you should have when you're investing that sort of money in a watch. So a famous watch, yes, but you know, kind of languishing on the periphery of modern acceptance. Well, Swatch, they gave their trial run with that Speedmaster. The Blancpain 50 Fathoms has become the watch which they are now releasing in this new jazzed up version for us, and they are calling it the Swatch Blancpain Scuba 50 Fathoms to differentiate it from its 50 Fathoms forebear. And what do we know about these watches? Well, they're actually been announced today by the Swatch Group, and they go on sale to the public tomorrow, on, I'll say the day after tomorrow actually, on the 9th of September. So they're arriving, this is hot off the press. And what are they? What's it all about? Well, much like the Speedmaster took that original iconic watch and put it into a bioceramic case, which were available in various different colours associated with the planets of the solar system. They've done a similar thing, Swatch, in producing these new Blancpain Scuba 50 Fathoms, and they've themed them after 5 of the world's oceans. And we're going to go through those in a moment. They've all got different colours, they've all got a slightly different personality. But they do follow the style DNA of the original Blancpain 50 Fathoms in many ways, not just appearance, but in capability as well. So let's have a look at them, because there's some interesting colour schemes that we have to see here. So the first one I'm going to show you here today is the Arctic Ocean version of their Scuba 50 Fathoms. And we'll just take a moment to enjoy this watch, but also I'm going to tell you some of the things about it. So the first thing you'll see is it is also made of a bioceramic material, exactly the same as the Speedmaster was, or the Moon Swatch as it's now become called. And it's not the same size as the original Blancpain. It is in fact a little bit smaller at 42.3 millimeters. So it does make it a bit more wearable by the ordinary everyday folk who don't have gorilla-like forearms. And it's 14.4 millimeters thick, or in depth. So it's still got quite a presence on the wrist. There's a reason for that. It's housing something special inside, but more of that in a moment. But about 14.5 millimeters in depth and 48 millimeters lug to lug. So actually, even though its size at 42.3 millimeters suggests it's a big watch, actually, because it's bioceramic, which is going to be very light in weight, and the lug to lug size is quite pleasant, I think we're going to find it's wearable by people like myself. I rarely ever go above a 40 millimeter wristwatch myself, but a watch like this, made of this sort of material, I think I'd be tempted to take my leap. Now, looking at this Arctic Ocean version, we can see that, you know, it's kind of a, oh, I don't know, a sort of a beigey colour, definitely leaning towards the lighter colour scale, sort of a khaki colour. And on the dial itself, we can see there's no date on this one. Some of the other models do have dates, but this one has no date. And you see that no radiation motif on the dial. So interesting, you know, again, instantly recognisable as a Blancpain, but and as a 50 Fathoms, but not so much so that it looks, you know, a clone of it. There's a different character coming out of the watch. You will notice that it has a bezel. It's a functioning unidirectional bezel, so it can be used as a dive watch. And in that bezel there is a ceramic inlay, which in this case has a sort of orange colour, as you can see, which is attractive. And I think this will be quite a popular colourway, this particular one, this Arctic Ocean. It's attractive, it's beautiful. Moving on to the next one, I'll talk about more of the functions and details as we go along. But here we see the Pacific Ocean version, and a totally different dynamic and colourway we see here. So in this one, we see that graduated dial with a darker colour leading to a white for the Pacific Ocean, and in a sort of much more striking, almost a sort of ochre or golden colour. Quite attractive. Quite interesting colours. When we see the dial of this watch, we will notice again that there is a date function here, hidden as it is between the 4 and the 5 o'clock hour indices. So discreet and tucked away and quite small. With the black inlay this time on the dial, that dial, the face of the watch, is behind a non-sapphire crystal, which is interesting. So it's not sapphire on the face, but if we look to the rear of the watch, we see it has a sapphire crystal covering, exhibition case back, the automatic watch movement which powers this watch. And inside the watch is the tried and tested Swatch System 51 automatic movement. Now this movement has been around since 2013. It's a really good movement. It, I believe, only got 51 moving parts, so it's quite simplistic. However, it delivers 90 hours of power reserve. So it's a really good automatic watch movement here. And the beauty of it is, with that sapphire crystal exhibition case back, we can see it, and it's been decorated for us, and you can see the movement's been decorated with some sort of decal, again emblematic of the oceans for which they are, the watches themselves are themed after. And you'll also notice something quite interesting on the back. You will see a sea creature depicted on the back of each watch, which apparently sets the colour scheme for the watch. That sea creature, it's a sea slug. It's got a name, it's a nudibranch. I've never heard of it before, but apparently this is a prolific sea creature found in all the oceans, and each of the watches has its own sea slug, nudibranch, which dictates the coloration of that watch. So interesting. Some of the things which I also noticed when I looked at the stats here, the actual case is bioceramic, as I say, which is a form of plastic in essence, but the lugs are drilled, so it will be fairly easy to change watch straps or bracelets should you wish to do so. But the strap, which comes as basic, is a NATO strap, and each has got its own colour variation dependent on the watch which you buy, so it's, you know, a complementary colour. But the strap itself is made from recycled fishing nets. I had to think for a moment what it was. So recycled fishing nets. So a hint towards a sustainability nod for this watch itself. So it's an interesting one. It's an attractive one. Moving on to the Atlantic Ocean. Again, bioceramic, this time an attractive darker coloured blue. You will notice that the dial has got that graduated coloration coming from the edges where it's quite dark towards the centre of the dial, and getting lighter and lighter with the colour. In keeping with the bioceramic, it's got a black inlay in the bezel, and you will see that the handset, something I haven't mentioned yet, they are fully loomed up with Super Luminova. So they have got good solid luminescence in lower light temperature conditions, and also the bezel is also loomed with Super Luminova as well, actually making it a very functional piece indeed. So quite a practical piece. Again, a bit more conservative colours on this one, and for that reason I'm going to make an assessment and a guess here. I think that this will be standout the most popular watch of this offering of the various different oceans that we're seeing here today, because I think it's just going to fit in with most people's colour schemes. I mean, this would fit within my own colour palette as my life, you know, maybe bright sort of reds, oranges, and, you know, yellows, or members of the yellow family. Certainly they're not going to fit into my clothing pattern, but this really is, I think, going to be the outstanding one. You can see the Atlantic one also comes with the date function available, which I think will again make it one of the more popular ones. Very beautiful, very attractive watch indeed. Again, this is going to be the winner, I think. And the last two, let's look at them. This is the Indian Ocean version, very similar to that Atlantic one, yet produced in a striking green colour. Again, green variated sort of dial. This one also comes with a date. Very attractive indeed. I think this is going to be a popular one because the green and the orange works rather well for me. What else do you need to know? Well, I said it's a functioning scuba watch. It is water resistant to 91 meters. Why 91 meters? Well, that's 50 fathoms in that metric. So 50 fathoms of water resistance, 300 feet, more than adequate for what anybody is going to need in ordinary daily life. I don't know at this point whether it's a screw down crown. I'm going to guess not, but certainly a very functional watch with a date as well on this one again. Yep. I can see this one being also a very popular one, along with the Atlantic, because those striking colours make it fun and cheery. And finally, at the other side of the world, the Antarctic Ocean 50 fathoms. Now this is one of the pieces that doesn't come with the date. It's got a much more icy feel to it. Obviously it's from the coldest place in the world, and you can see that sort of not quite white, but certainly sort of heading towards white coloration with the grey inset into the bezel. Very attractive. Got a bit of a motif on the front of the dial there. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, but you know, I think it works well. It's attractive for somebody who likes those colours, and yeah, I think there's a lot to be said here with these. There's lots of functionality as well as very attractive dynamics. Other things to note, you know, whereas that moon swatch was just quartz, which kind of let it down, in this one beats an actual automatic movement, which is functional, and it's going to be you know, a very good piece. So that's kind of what it's all about here today. What do I think of it? What is my assessment? Well, I like it personally. I was not attracted at all to that moon swatch, that Speedmaster Omega collaboration with Swatch, simply because it was a quartz movement watch and it felt like a cheap knockoff of the original, right? It just felt like a cash grab by a company which didn't really need to promote the Speedmaster because it's one of the most famous and iconic watches in the world. So the Speedmaster didn't need the bump in its reputation. However, I think the Blancpain 50 Fathoms is a watch which exists in the sort of greyed out areas of the watch world. It's not really well known by, you know, the wider population. However, I think this collaboration in this Scuba 50 Fathoms is going to elevate it in people's consciousness. It's going to drive some additional sales of the original Blancpain 50 Fathoms, expensive a watch as that is, at what, 14,000 quid. It's definitely going to drive people in that direction. But I also believe that this watch is going to sell fabulously well. I mean, it is, we know, not a limited edition. However, it is only going to be available from Swatch boutique shops. So you can't buy it online. You physically have to go to the store, queue up undoubtedly, because these are going to be popular when they are released to the public on Saturday, and they're going to be purchased in their droves. So yeah, this is a really interesting insight into the direction that the Swatch Group is taking. And you might think, as many people did after the Speedmaster release, you know, is it cheapening a watch which is iconic, famous? Is it sort of reducing its reputation by bringing out a plasticky knockoff of it for a very affordable price so that the masses can buy them, and in so doing the Swatch Group get an excellent sort of financial reporting year because they're selling millions of watches that they would not have done so otherwise? It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like that this time round. Because the Blancpain is less well known to people, it is perhaps going to have less of a sort of messianic following, you know, when it comes out to the public for sale. But I think the watch itself is fun. It's cheerful, it's got character, it's got personality. Those colours allow you to choose something which is more in keeping with your own charisma and approach to life. Yet the watch that you buy, and I haven't told you the price, it's actually 340 British pounds. So in comparison to the Moon Swatch, which was less than that, I know, but it was just a pretty normal quartz watch really. The Moon Swatch with that System 51 automatic movement in it, 340 pounds, 400 US dollars. I think that is an approachable price. You know, if you want to buy a watch which is different, exciting, charismatic, and will certainly be a nice piece to have in the collection with an automatic movement, which has got a story behind it, which is linked to a very famous watch, which is one of the oldest watch brands in the world. Yeah, I think they've done well. I mean, you could say, yeah, perhaps it is just another cash grab. And where are they going to go next? What else are they going to plunder from their treasure chest of heirloom watches? What's going to be next in bioceramic? But I think they're doing it in a tactful and tasteful way. It's not crap. You know, this is a watch which I think people will buy, wear, and enjoy. And it is perhaps introducing hundreds of thousands of people to the watch world, even automatic watches, which they wouldn't have come to it in any other way than through something of this nature. So yeah, there's value to it, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of impromptu watch news. If you have, don't forget, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like this, click the subscribe button. And if you'd like to see, you know, or ask me a question or support the channel, get into the show notes below, and there's lots of information there for you. You can even support us as a patron and benefit from additional video content which I produce for you. So until the next time, wear your own watch with pride and passion, and I'll see you again very soon.